Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about Beowulf, which is the second book we're reading, and perhaps the first truly literary book, given that Bede's history was a bit of a mix between literature and history. So one thing about this, a couple things about introducing this book. We don't know who the author of this book was. It was discovered, I believe, in the ruins of a monastery by some anonymous author, and it was really cool because we happened to get a manuscript of it all being in one piece. So there are a couple places in the book where, because of damage to the manuscript, we're missing stuff, but it was all in one original manuscript. I believe it was found in the 17th, 18th century, which is pretty cool to be able to have something like this that had been missing for a long time, and then came back. And as you'll see when reading it, it's still, it may have been written like a millennia and a half ago, but it's still a rollicking good story, and is a lot of fun. So this story is perhaps probably the first English epic. One thing you'll notice about it is that I'm saying that it's an English epic, and it is technically written in English. However, the form of English in this book is not one that we can really read today. I'm trying to see if the camera's going to get this. I guess not. I'll probably bring this the first day of class and show you, because the book I have, which isn't the one that we'll be using for class, but it has a parallel translation. So it shows the really old English on the left page, and then the translation on the right page, which is pretty cool. And I'll probably just bring it to class so you can see how different the English here is, since it's pretty unreadable to us today, just because of how much the English language has shifted over time. Anyways, so this book is really a good bit of it's an epic, and it's really an action-adventure story. You may be reading it and may feel a lot of some of the superhero movie flicks that we may watch today. It's basically a story of a hero going out and killing a lot of monsters. And so you may be wondering, well, if it's just a hero going out and killing a lot of monsters, what exactly qualifies as really good English literature that we're going to be discussing in Humanities? And that's because the story raises a lot. Not only is it a really good story, and really done in really good poetry, as you'll see, but you're also going to see that it has a lot to say and discuss about the kind of the intersection of Christianity and culture. As I mentioned, the introduction to Bede's ecclesiastical history of the English people, this is going to be a main topic this year, of looking at how Christianity and culture interact, and especially comparing and contrasting the way we see it today in modern society with the way it worked in the medieval world. One of the things you'll see in this book is most scholars will estimate that this book was written, I believe it's about the 9th century when they estimate, but it's telling stories between the 4th and 5th century. Which is about the time that this people were first beginning to come to Christ. So you'll see that, especially in so Christianity is present in the story. However, it's presented in a very different way, given that's a time when the early English were really beginning to come to Christ. And so you'll see that there's a very interesting mixture of kind of a lot of traditional Norse elements with Christian elements. And some of that we may be scratching our heads a bit at. One example is that Norse myth, which is what a lot of this book is kind of built on, a lot of Norse mythology and stuff. And Norse mythology is pretty dark. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Norse mythology, but kind of essentially the sum up is that there are a lot of Norse gods, and essentially the world's all going to end with Ragnarok. Which you may notice for the comic book movie fans, the latest Thor movie is subtitled Ragnarok, and that name is actually gotten from kind of the end of Norse mythology, because that's also called Ragnarok, like I'd said. It essentially means the death of all the gods. The idea is basically the gods are going to fight in Ragnarok, kind of the judgment day of Norse mythology, against this giant serpent, and there's going to be a really long war, and depending on which version of the story you read, in both stories, the whole world gets destroyed. In one version of the story, after battling for millennia, the gods will finally win and the world will be reborn. And another, the snake wins and swallows up all of reality, and thus the world ends. And as you can see, that's a very dark end for mythology. And you'll definitely be seeing some very interesting elements in this book, since you have this really dark Norse mythology on the one hand, and on the other hand, you have Christian hope. And you'll see, particularly in the ending, that there's a good bit of a tension between those two, and we'll be discussing that. You'll want to look out for that. So you want to look out for that. You also want to look for kind of other ways that Christianity is kind of coming into heads with kind of Norse and traditional, perhaps Viking ideals. And we'll be looking at some different ways that these two sets of values end up clashing and how they end up complementing each other and how they end up disagreeing each other. One particular way we'll see this is that there's a certain tension in this book between humility and arrogance. If you think about traditional Viking culture, it's very much formed on boasts, on trying to be the best, strongest man out there. And you'll see often in this book that Beowulf is going to come. Beowulf is the hero of the story, and he's going to give different boasts of, here are all the things I've done in the past. This is why I'm a really great warrior. This is why I'm going to be able to defeat this next monster. But on the other hand, Beowulf is a Christian, which also means that after saying this, he's then going to say, oh, but I'm only able to do this because Christ can do it. And so in a sense, it can feel sometimes a bit unnatural, that it seems like he's supposed to be humble, like a Christian, but he's also kind of prideful in many ways, and there isn't a clear connection between them. I think in some ways it's that the author has the Norse ideals on the one hand, and he has the Christian ideals on the other hand, and he's trying to connect them, but sometimes he can't really. He's kind of both of them side by side, and here you're like, well, which is he? Is he more of the Norse hero, or is he more of the Christian hero? I think what we're going to end up realizing is that he's kind of some of both. And that he's a flawed hero. It's not a perfect world. And so I think we could perhaps read into this story that Beowulf, he's living in a Norse culture, he's trying to be a Christian hero, and he's trying to be kind of both. He wants to be both a Norse hero and a Christian hero, and it's a bit complicated how the two of them interact. So we'll be looking at that and some other things as we discuss that. So anyways, I really hope you guys enjoy this. It should be a pretty fun story with Beowulf going and slaying all those monsters and such. And so we'll be looking at these fights and looking at kind of how that the Norse values are contrasted with the Christian values, and we should be able to get some good discussion out of this. Anyways, looking forward to discussing this book with you, and we'll begin to discuss that, I believe, on the 16th. So talk to you guys about it then.